What's happening, guys? Nordic Warrior here with another post-fight review in the dark. Yeah, some people like these, some people really despise them, but yeah, here we go. So, John Ryder defeats Daniel Jacobs by a split decision in what was a pretty interesting fight. I gotta admit, this fight was really intriguing to me. Now, it went mostly how I expected it would. Those of you who had spoke to me about this fight on live streams, I didn't make a video about it, but I spoke to several people about it on a few live streams, and I was in some comment sections and some chats, and I said from day one I felt that John Ryder would beat Danny Jacobs. I always thought it would go the distance. I didn't think there'd be a stoppage in this fight, and I thought John Ryder would win on points, and that was what happened, and I had no argument with the decision. I felt it was a fair score, and I felt John Ryder did enough to win. But let's talk about how the fight went. Early in the fight, I felt Danny Jacobs showed flashes of the old Danny Jacobs, because Danny Jacobs in the past couple of years, from I'd say the Gennady Golovkin fight all the way through to now, hasn't really been himself. In my opinion, he's a fighter who has regressed. I think the Golovkin fight really took a lot out of him, and that was one of them fights where, you know how certain fighters only have one real great performance in them? Like Daniel Gill fighting Darren Barker, that was the only time Darren Barker was ever able to really perform on the world stage, and he was never really able to reach that pinnacle again. Same with somebody like Andy Ruiz, he had that one great performance against AJ, and he hasn't been able to reach that level since. I kind of feel the same way about Danny Jacobs. He had a great performance, despite losing clearly against Golovkin. He put up a great effort in that fight and really gave a good account of himself. And he's never really been able to reach that level since. And I just feel he's regressed ever since. I mean, he had a lot of problems with Chavez Jr. He got outboxed and arguably lost to Gabriel Rosado. So going into this fight against John Ryder, a guy who's very hard-working, a guy who's got good stamina over 12 rounds, a guy who's tough and durable, I thought that it was pretty clear that Jacobs was going to lose this fight. I thought John Ryder was going to beat him. And that was what happened. What happened in the fight, in the early rounds, Jacobs, like I said, he showed flashes of the old Jacobs. He boxed very well. He was keeping John Ryder at the end of a stiff jab. He was using feints, was landing the 1-2, which is of course the combination you land on a southpaw. And John Ryder to me looked bemused, and Danny Jacobs looked completely completely in control to me. He had John Ryder on the end of the jab, was smothering John Ryder's work on the inside. And I was a little bit surprised. I was like, man, Jacobs might take over this fight, and he might actually win all the way. But then, of course, midway through the fight, Danny Jacobs started to slow down, and we all knew going into the fight that Jacobs has shown stamina issues in his recent fights. He slowed down badly when he fought Gabriel Rosado, for example, so it wasn't really a surprise that he slowed down in this fight. And of course, John Ryder, being a consummate professional, a guy who works hard over 12 rounds, was able to pick up the pace, and he was able to start to get going on the inside. He was landing that left uppercut to the chin inside. He would sort of step to the side, land the uppercut inside, smother Danny Jacobs, and then he'd land the right hook to the body or land it over the top. And I thought it was quite slick in there from John Ryder. He was quite smart in how he went about his work. And he just completely outworked, outmuscled, and outfought Danny Jacobs en route to a split decision victory. And yeah, it was a pretty good fight. I really enjoyed it. And like I said, it was interesting to me because early in the fight, I thought I was going to be wrong, because I was seeing Danny Jacobs box like he hasn't boxed in a long time. Flashes of the old Jacobs, and I felt John Ryder to me just looked a little bit flustered. He looked as if he was like, am I really good enough to win at this level? And he looked a little bit deterred to me, but yeah, of course he took over the fight and he won the fight pretty clearly. Now, I haven't seen anybody's responses to the result yet. I don't know how you guys scored the fight or how you guys thought it went, but to me, I thought that the scoring was correct. I think 115-113 to John Ryder was fair. There's an argument that can be made that he maybe did win a couple of the early rounds. I thought that Jacobs, for the most part, controlled the early part of the fight, but some of the rounds were quite scrappy and close, and on the inside, a lot of his work was smothered, and there was the occasional uppercut and hook on the inside from John Ryder. So you could maybe make an argument that he won some of the early rounds, but the later rounds were clearly John Ryder rounds. With the exception of the 12th round, which I felt was close, I felt that the entirety of the second half of the fight was swept by John Ryder. He just worked harder, landed more, and was more effective. He had a pretty good jab too. His southpaw right jab was catching Jacobs from the outside, and because Jacobs was starting to tire, the jab was starting to affect him more, and we kind of saw what we saw in the Triple G fight where Jacobs would get hit and his ears would flap. You were seeing that on the replays. That was quite funny. So yeah, it was a good fight. I really enjoyed it. Good performance by John Ryder. Did what I thought he would. And he came from behind to do so because, like I said, he got off to a really poor start and he picked up the pace midway and had a good victory. So yeah, good performance from John Ryder. I don't really know where he's going to go. I mean, I can't see him beating any of the champions in that division, if I'm being honest. I think he's the type of fighter who's, I wouldn't say he's world class, but I'd say he's high domestic level. He's a guy who's a consummate professional, always turns up in shape, always gives you a good go, and is able to last at the distance. But he's not a guy who I think is going to set the world alight. He doesn't have like tremendous punching power or like sublime athleticism or skills or anything like that. He's just a very, very well-rounded professional. And he'll be in some good fights, and we'll see where he goes from here. But this is definitely a career-best win and a career-best performance from him. So, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and God bless.